Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Nicholas Lynch. I'm a consultant working with the Institute of Leadership and Management, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Achievement Developing Talent. It's my pleasure to introduce Toby Townrow. Toby is a Managing Director of Employee Engagement Consultants 1080 Cymru. He's a passionate and enthusiastic career coach, facilitator, trainer, who's worked with a wide range of organisations through his career, including Unilever, Dixon's, Carphone Warehouse, and the Royal Mint. Toby has a particular interest in getting the right people doing the right roles in which they play to their strengths to maximise their productivity. He believes that for an organisation to become truly effective, they must create an environment that facilitates this. So he's ideally placed to talk to us today about developing talent. Toby, can I hand over to you?
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. We are talking about developing talent. We have only got 25 minutes and plus some time for questions. So we are going to look at this in broad brushstrokes. Those of you who are obviously joining these sessions regularly will probably be aware of that. There'll be a lot more in-depth research, and some of that we'll be pointing to as we go through. So obviously this is part of the dimensions of leadership program that we'll be going through. The part that we're obviously looking at is in the achievement part. So there's a range of areas, and we are looking at the developing talent node under achievement. So achieving leaders, succession planning by encouraging talent and helping people grow and develop. Sounds like a wonderful thing, and a lot of organisations do struggle with this. Some of them do it very well, others really struggle. But having a clear succession planning, so actually spending time on succession planning, does make the organisation more effective by making sure the right people are in the right roles at the right time. Part of that is really understanding what the right person looks like for a role, and that's not necessarily always about skills, but about attitude. And how do you measure that within your organisation? So there's a whole heap of work that sits underneath this. It's not just about, we're going to put this person there because they've been here long enough, which is what a lot of organisations have traditionally done in the past. Actually, it's really about understanding what's going to be the right fit for that role, what works well in that role, what kind of attributes, personality types work well in that role, as well as experience. So it's a range of things rather than just pure skills. So the key really is actually understanding that it's not, if you're going to develop talent, succession planning is part of that. Being able to actually spot that talent early on in a way that is fair and equitable, which is very important, as well as giving people the non-financial rewards and learning opportunities. So the opportunity to drive their own career, to formulate plans themselves. And often that's what you're looking for in sort of senior talent. You want people who are going to be able to drive their own development as much as having been given things. So one of the key things for most organisations really need to do is understand how they can let their talent thrive, and then they go to spot that in terms of what are the mechanisms that allow that. So are there regular meetings between leadership teams and managers, middle managers, to say actually this person's really talented, this is what does talent look like? What kind of role that that person fall into? And that's something that we do a lot within our organisation, and we help organisations look at that. Because one of the ways to look at that is actually think about what are people's strengths, so what really motivates and drives people from an innate personality perspective. And once you understand that, then you can start to understand where that fits into your organisation. And that's when you can start drawing up the succession plans for the people in the future. So succession planning has to be, that's the point I was making, was that succession planning has to be agile. Again, you can't be too rigid in that. And also, it's a good idea to let people know that they might be on a succession plan. As Nick pointed out earlier, I used to work for Unilever. And in Unilever, actually, you were notified that you were on a succession plan. So that actually encouraged you to work towards things because it was an expectation. In fact, even when I joined the business, I was told that one of the reasons that I sound like too arrogant or anything, but one of the reasons that I'd been selected was that they were looking to develop managers of the future. So that gave me the motivation and drive to really think about, well, what does my own career look like? And I think that's really important for people to grasp when they're looking at succession planning, is how are you driving people towards developing their own career path, and so that they're hungry for it and they're asking for development and they're looking for opportunities to do that aren't necessarily always about training. And we'll probably come on to that later on. So this probably touches on some of the things I've talked about. You're looking for potential in people. It's not necessarily about skills and experience. Some of that will be there, obviously, but these are the kind of traits that you'll be looking for. So you'll be looking for people who are highly motivated, as I've said, to drive their own career. People who are curious for new experiences and ask for those experiences. People who can spot trends and can spot patterns that perhaps others haven't. So they've got really good insight into how the business works and how to make the business better. They communicate really well, and are resilient and determined. And I think the other thing to add to that, for particularly on those last two, is that a high degree of emotional intelligence is I think is required for the people who have got potential. So they're able to perhaps flex their management styles in ways that I'm sure you may want to discuss this in other parts of the program. That that they can spot when they need to exercise situational leadership. So really what you're looking for is the agility, as I mentioned before, and you're looking for people who are able to deal with complexity. So they're mentally agile and can deal with complexity, but they are confident in dealing with a range of people and can communicate really easily with a range of people in different situations. They're not afraid of change and they're not afraid to try different things. So those, thinking of the Pareto principle, those 80-20 rule, the 20% of people who are really confident and happy with change and like new experiences, those are people that are going to help your organization move forward. And they can also inspire others to deliver with impact. So these will be the kind of traits that you're looking for in people, because the skill stuff you can add later on. And I think this is a point I've already alluded to, but it's really important to repeat that it's not always about employing people who just happen to be good at a particular role. And this is in my experience, has been very true of salespeople. So I used to work for Dixon's, as Nick mentioned, and Dixon's hierarchy system very much reflected that if you were great on sales, then you were on the path to being a manager. But actually, it didn't really work that well because by their very nature, generally speaking, salespeople are quite selfish. That doesn't necessarily make for great managers. It can do in certain circumstances, but it doesn't necessarily make good for people who are kind of well-run and work well in teams. So what you were really looking for was the potential for people who could flex, who could be responsive to change, who could deal with different situations, and could deal comfortably with people in different situations. So the idea that you are just good at one job, that means you're going to be good at a job with a very different set of skills. It doesn't work. So this is why that you're not necessarily looking for people who have got all the skills and knowledge and some kind of qualification. It's about the people who've got the personality traits that underlie that. And this is the CIPD version, so Chartered Institute of Personnel Development. This is a definition that came out with last year. So talent management seeks to attract, identify, develop, engage, retain, and deploy individuals who are considered particularly valuable to an organization. It's a great definition because it actually keeps you all the stages that you need. So you need to attract the talent in the first place. You need to identify who those people are within the organization that may already be there. You need to develop them and engage them and keep them, and then finally put them in the right roles. And this is where, for me, it's so important. This is one of our key challenges with 1080 Cymru, what we try and do is help with organisations, is actually all of these processes, but particularly about engaging and retaining. The key thing about keeping people, particularly key people who you've identified as talent for the future, is that actually from a fundamental business point of view, it makes financial sense. Losing anybody in an organisation is very costly because you have to start that whole process again. So the key challenge for any organisation is to keep people as much as possible. There will always be a sense that you may want to bring fresh blood in and fresh ideas, absolutely right. But in terms of the sort of general process, particularly people that you want that have gone on your succession plan. You need to keep them as much as you possibly can. So there's a number of pipeline strategies, is the way they put it, in terms of how you find these people. So first of all, yes, you can promote from within. So you're identifying talent from the existing pool of people. You can hire experienced workers, so people who've already done the same role. But you can also hire newly trained workers. So this is where you take a bit of a punt on somebody who you feel has got the personality traits, but maybe hasn't done a management role before, for example. And this is three different strands. So particularly the bottom two are very much related to traditional recruitment from outside, the interview process and the rest of it. That promote from within is where you can really start to put names on it. So you might have a talent strategy, a succession plan that might identify person X who has these traits. And so it doesn't necessarily always have to have names on it. So this is a key, again, about being agile and flexible. You can have people who've just got the right kind of personality traits, or you can have names of people that you already know from within. So the whole point is that this is an ongoing process. It never stops, because you've always got to think about the future and be prepared for the future and ready. So succession plan, it's all about readiness to lead. So you're looking for people who are perhaps ready to take that step. Sometimes you might take a punt on them, but again, that might be because you've identified that they've got the right personality traits, the right motivation. It should be planned rather than accidental. There should be a case of there is a plan, there's a hierarchy chart, or there's a logic to what you're doing. But this is a key piece, the idea that you're demonstrating commitment to development from within. So the whole point being, again, this is why it's a good idea to let people know that actually there might be a plan. It is that actually it motivates those people to move towards and actually perform better and give of their best. So getting that discretionary effort from people. Equally, there has to be, if that is the case, there has to be a fair and equitable strategy for identifying those people, so that other people don't feel like they've been overlooked, and they understand exactly why, or exactly what the attributes and traits that you're looking for. Some potential difficulties: flat organisation, so where there's no really sort of hierarchical structure. This happens a lot of obviously smaller organisations, but also some new organisations that might be 100, 200 people, but actually generally have a really flat structure. Like another client at the moment has got 170 and very little in the way of hierarchy. Now, the problems that creates, of course, is that you have a bunch of people you develop and there's nowhere for them to go. Now, two things. There is a bit of a cliche, and some of you may have seen this on LinkedIn. It's attributed to Richard Branson. I'm not sure if he said it, but there's a quote that somebody says in a board meeting, what happens if we develop all these people and they leave? And the answer is, well, what happens if we don't develop them and they stay? And so if you're in a flat organization, you might think, well, what's the point? Because there's nowhere for these people to go and they're just getting annoyed. What are the answers to that from the perspective of the experience that I've worked in organizations I've worked in? And the answers to that is to have a number of projects. Look for projects that people can work in to gain experience, so that they're not then they don't get cold, if you like, and they don't get stuck in one particular role, doing the same thing over and over again. Because actually, one of the things you're looking for are people who are looking to drive change forward, or they'll be looking for that in their own lives. Excuse me a second. Sorry, I've had to come outside to get this signal right. And so by being able to offer some project work and get people working different ways, that will enable that work to be done, and to those people to actually drive forward into different kinds of work that will allow them to be engaged and stay motivated, but also drive their own development. The next one there, family-owned firms. Again, this is something that can happen when you have a firm that might have been obviously run by one particular family member, and they bring in their sons or daughters onto the board, or significant others onto the board, and then those people are never going anywhere, and that can be a real challenge. It's very difficult to understand that, but from the perspective of the ones that I've worked with, a lot of them have grown, and actually could have done better because they've grown in a particular way that's been quite haphazard, because it's kind of a family decisions are made very much on the hoof. And it's not until they grow to the point where they really need massive investment, and then the bank comes in and says, well, actually, you need to have proper succession planning, that it starts to happen. That's generally been my experience. And then the bottom one, they're leaders who don't want to go. And that's a challenge for an organization where if you're in a larger organization, there are some advantages, is that actually you can start to move people around, and give people different kinds of work to do. Because actually, again, if somebody's being identified as a blocker, then, and that sounds awful, that can be the way it's phrased, then actually, what else could they potentially be doing? So again, what do you know about that person? What do you know about their strengths and their areas that really motivate them? And therefore, what else could they potentially be doing that would benefit both them and the organisation and allow you to promote from within? So this is generally the process, and it's really that was outlined very much in the definition from the CIPD. So it's about identifying the needs and goals, documenting the current future skills that you need, assess the candidates and find out where your gaps are, transition people into those roles, and then continue that development process. It's not always possible because so many organisations are chasing widgets, but the key thing from my point of view is that an organisation that's going to succeed and well into the future continues to develop on these spaces. And one of the clients we're working with at the moment, the CEO says very much that if I don't get, and considering they're a financial institution, this is welcome change. The CEO said, if I don't get the people bit right, I won't get the numbers I need. So it's a challenge if you're HR directed. It can be a challenge in an organisation where HR perhaps isn't considered as that important. But ultimately, you can demonstrate it by showing the value of what happens when people leave the business, and the money that's lost. So that becomes a cycle, and that includes, obviously the spotting talent, developing the skills, getting employees ready for when they're ready to step into that role, but giving them the opportunities. It doesn't necessarily have to be job opportunities, as I've already outlined. Sharing their progress, so you share that progress with the wider business. So again, you're motivating people so that people can understand that actually this is a business that actually does move forward, and that there's potential in the business to move onwards and upwards, and identifying future needs. Now, the research that the Institute has done, which you can download if you follow the link, is really straightforward to download. Make sure you're logged in, and then you can download the PDF. But these were the overall findings from the Untapped Talent Report. And it's really looking at actually the benefits of an age diverse workforce. So it's not always thinking about when everybody has to be, very, very young in order to be hungry. It's just not the case. And they give experience in name. Shows that everyone can keep learning, it doesn't matter what their age. And actually coaching can help with experienced workers. So and one of these ideas is to create a network of alumni. So people who've gone through a process, perhaps a process already of talent management, actually get them to meet regularly and actually share their experience with people who are starting that process for the first time. Rewarding talent, really interesting area, and we could talk about this for a very long time in terms of there's a great Daniel Pink video which shows that actually rewarding people for financially for cognitive tasks doesn't actually work. It actually wires our brains wrong. And that's a TED talk that you can look up if you're so inclined, Daniel Pink. But reward can be about benefits, development opportunities, recognition in different ways. It doesn't necessarily always have to be about money. And the Forbes Coach Council looked at motivating employees. It's all about, in the past, as I've said, all about raises and promotions and bonuses. Those days have gone. Engagement stems from different kinds of incentives. So things that actually impact on people's personal well-being. It's not just about financial, it's about emotional health. And giving people autonomy and freedom. This is a big one from an engagement perspective. So giving people the opportunity to work flexibly, which allows them then perhaps to manage childcare, for example, offering sabbaticals so people can go off and work on a project, which is something famously Google do. I mean, I think they give 1 day a month to people to work on their own projects. Reducing hours, filling in 4 days instead of 5, just working an extra hour and a half in a day, in each day, or 2 hours each day. Support for volunteering and sponsorship for education. All of those things will give people the freedom to pursue things. But actually, they'll give the value back to you in productivity. And this is where, why should I be doing this? The Institute also looked at managing millennials in the report Workforce 2020, which, Nick can correct me, I believe is also downloadable from the site. But it is, again, this idea about coaching rather than directing. So when it says rather than manage, it means that directed management style. It's really about people understanding the why and the what and the how, as well as the what. There's an expectation that people's career expectations will manage better. There'll be an expectation that people will be able to move on in their career, and the idea that you need to give people autonomy, so that can a little bit of control over the roles that they do, things that they do. If they see things that are going wrong, are they able to fix it? Can they use new technology in order to do that? And it's what it says there: embrace new technology and entrepreneurialism. So really, that's referring to something as a new movement that's coming through of entrepreneurialism, in terms of showing an entrepreneurial mindset within an organization, or even being entrepreneurial within an organization in terms of developing new products or new intellectual property, which everybody can benefit from. And thinking about organization social responsibility, how can you improve the company image in terms of what can you do on the outside, what work can you do? So all of this is about developing talent and changing. So as a quote from Marianne Abib-Petch, to bring about change, create a regular routine of contact with not only a human resources person, but also put on your own agenda to constantly scout for talented people inside and outside your organisation. Talent management is not purely an HR function, and nor is engagement. This is again, it's quite an important thing to think about. It's not purely down to HR to have a succession plan. You will work with HR to do that. You work with HR to help drive talent, but you have to be on the lookout for it. It's everyone's responsibility. And I would say the same for engagement, for employee engagement. It's everybody's responsibility, from the CEO right to everybody working. So that takes us pretty much to the end of the presentation itself. So I think at this point, I'm handing you back to Nick. And Nick, I think you may have some questions.
We do. Excuse me. Yeah, we do. Maybe just start off with one around attracting people, because you talked there about developing people, but yes, we hear this term, a sort of war for talent, a lot. Yeah, that it's really hard just to attract these talented people. And I wonder if in your experience, there's anything we can do there. We often identify that there's a skills shortage and a shortage of sort of qualified staff, just to get people to think about our organisation and attract them in the first place. Any sort of thoughts on that?
I mean, I think there's two things about it. It's because attracting the right level of skills, in my experience, in terms of skills, there are skills that you obviously need to do, like some basic jobs, some jobs, the basic skills that might be required. But there is also skills are things that you can teach. So if you're prepared, if you're finding out, okay, we're not actually getting people with the skills, then actually when we need to bring them in, the part of the induction is make sure they give them the skills. The key part is, are they the right person who is going to be able to take those skills on? So in terms of attraction, for me, I mean, obviously I'm based in Wales, Tenancy Cymru, those who hadn't guessed. It's a particular challenge for us in Wales, particular challenge for, even in Cardiff, which is a lovely city, we still have, higher wages generally in England, particularly obviously if you go further east towards London. So that's a challenge to attract that talent in the first place and then retain it. Because some of that will be about what salaries you can offer, but other things will be about what is the culture of the organisation like, and is it a match? And that's where I think for me the exercise around attraction is about matching the right people with the right organisation in terms of a cultural fit and a cultural fit for that role. So if you can be as clear as possible as an organisation about the culture that you've got, B, the kind of person you're looking for. And bear in mind also that you'll be looking for a diverse workforce, and by diversity, I don't just mean the kind of ethnic and gender and so on. I mean diversity of thinking, So what are your gaps in your organization you need to fill? But in terms of attraction, you have to be really clear about, actually, this is a great place to work. Why is it a great place to work? It's not just about having a pool table or a basketball court. Actually, it's a great place to work because there are opportunities to work on different projects, or there are opportunities to grow and develop your business. We will your career, and you can we will help you with training. There's a company up in sorry, I know I'm going on a bit, but there's a company up in the valleys, and their engagement strategy is absolutely fantastic. And a lot of it is around, they give people £200 a month towards whatever training they want to go and do for themselves. And it might not even be directly managing their role, but that's an example. So.
Just to pick up on a point you talked there about diversity, and there's always this sort of thought that we spot people that look like us. Yeah, that
yes.
If the people that are running the organisations pick people, say, "Oh, you're talented because you're like I was, 10 years ago or whatever,"
yes.
And actually we just keep sort of perpetuating the existing culture that we've got, and which may be good, but I just wonder if you take that sort of issue of diversity, how you don't just keep perpetuating what you've got.
Yes. So obviously, if you've identified that somebody in particular roles need to have a certain set of skills, just as an example, I'm not a particularly detail orientated person. I'm generally a big picture kind of person. So that I know then that there'll be certain projects that I'll be involved in that I will need somebody who doesn't think like me. So I have enough awareness of my own strengths and my own motivators to know that if I'm working on that project, I need to bring somebody else who actually doesn't think like me. And I need that. And what will happen, of course, is that I say to that person, look, I know that they're motivated by detail. I need you because you've got this real detail focus. They'll be all over it. So this, from an organization point of view, you can do the same thing. You can actually say, okay, where are our gaps? So even right up to a board group or leadership team, and say, okay, what are our key motivators for this group? And there are various psychometrics that measure strengths, for example, and strengths being energizers. What gets you motivated and out of bed in the mornings. And you can use those to say, okay, well, we can actually, in this leadership group, we can see we've got a big gap here, but we need to fill that gap. So we'll bring somebody in who fills that gap. So it's not necessarily spotted talent because they were like I was 10 years ago. And you're absolutely right. That is something that people have done traditionally. But actually, it's about it's going to make this leadership team the most well-rounded it can be.
Maybe just one final question, and I think which flows from that, which is a lot of talent developers is quite a long-term strategy. Yeah, it's quite a long-term. The gains come in the longer term. And someone's asked around, well, how do you get buy-in for talent development from senior leaders in an organisation, given that they might have more of a short-term, they'll have short-term priorities. How do you sort of persuade them that this is a really good approach?
Yes. Okay. If I had a short, pithy answer to that question, I think I'd be probably wealthier than I am now. However, that's something I touched on earlier on about the actual costs of losing people that you don't want to lose, and that's where when we're having discussion with clients, that's something we talk about. Is to say, look, the cost of losing somebody, it's not just their or replacing somebody. It's not just the annual salary of the person you're replacing them with. It's the fundamental productivity of the business. So if you're attracting and retaining the best talent by using this talent management strategy, you're keeping people for longer. So the trick is to discuss it in terms of finance. If the person you're talking to is a financially minded person, that you're looking at it from bottom line perspective. Now, or generally speaking, when you recruit somebody new, the bottom line, what's actually on the balance sheet is the recruitment agency costs. But what that doesn't take into account is all the man hours that's taken for perhaps managers to interview new people, to sift for the applications, the loss of productivity when that person was thinking of leaving, so they weren't working as hard as they used to, the loss of productivity when you're training somebody new, all the man hours it takes to actually induct and train somebody, the cost of raising all the various IT requests, because I was always told it costs £75 to raise an IT request, and all of that ancillary stuff that goes with it, that costs a lot of money. Now, I've estimated from my old job, Unilever, that bringing somebody new in was around about £75,000 to £100,000 per person, if you include all the man hours.
Yeah.
And these people are on average salary of about 28 to 32. Something like that. So if you start looking at it like that, it'll soon wake people up to the benefits of doing this and getting it right. And you know, I'd say allude back to the cliche I referred to earlier on. You want people who are developed and ready for that next role, rather than have to go to external. And there will be times you want to bring fresh blood in. I think, you know, it's good to emphasise that it's not always about recruiting from within. But you know, if you're going to say a split, you probably want maybe 85 to 90%, you know, people from within, and 10 to 15%, 20% maybe bring people from outside.
Toby, many thanks.
Yes, sorry, we've run out of time.
We are. I'm afraid we are at time, and I know everyone will be busy keen to head home and everything. Just want to thank you for persevering with us. The sound was a little bit unclear at the beginning there, but I hope everyone was able to follow the presentation. Toby, thanks for your presentation, and thanks for answering our questions. On behalf of the Institute of Leadership, I'm going to close the presentation now and thank everyone. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.